But I want to start the show off today by discussing Elvis Presley, because both of our guests today, and Janine is a huge Elvis fan, and that just worked out time-wise, having our guests here. Both of you knew Elvis at different parts of his career. I guess, Wink, you met him early on when he was just getting his footing in show business,
Yeah,
right?
I was the morning man at WHBQ Radio and happened to be there that night at Dewey Phillips' show called Red Hot and Blue when Sam Phillips walked in with the initial recording by Elvis, the truck driver, of That's All Right Mama. He didn't even have a flip side recorded yet. Blue Moon of Kentucky wasn't recorded until the following several days when they had to have a song to go on the flip of That's All Right Mama. But I was there that night. And
you were like barely 20 years old and disc jockeying already, as we talked about. And he came in, and he was a few years older than you, right?
Yeah, in fact, he was watching a double feature at the Suzores Theater on Decatur Street, according to his mom and dad. They went down and found him in the theater in their truck. They lived in low-rent housing out in Lauderdale Courts in East Memphis. And they found him at the theater, brought him down to the radio station, which was on the mezzanine floor, or as Dewey used to say, the magazine floor of the Chisco Hotel on South Main Street in Memphis. Brought him in, and he sat down at a microphone, and Dewey Phillips proceeded to interview him. And Elvis, many times afterwards, said, had I known I was on the radio live, I wouldn't have been able to talk, because he was still very introverted and very quiet, and had a sort of a complex, and he didn't know how to talk on the radio. And that was the beginning of what we would later term Presley Mania, that night in July 1954.
Wow. Now, when you got your dance party radio or television show, you were doing radio and television simultaneously. This was around 55, I think, right?
Yeah, right.
56. Mm-hmm. When, by this point, Elvis had one or two big hits. Was it Heartbreak Hotel was the big hit? You had the foresight. You had booked him on your dance party show to come in and interview him live because he had just started to become what he was about to become.
He'd just come back to Memphis from Hollywood doing his first movie, and he was doing a charitable show at Overton Park Shell for a very important charity there in Memphis. And he wanted to promote that, and of course I wanted to get him on my show because he was Elvis Presley and was the hottest thing in the country.
And you had the foresight to hire a camera crew to come over and film it while
because we didn't have videotape in those days.
Right, and kinescoping was probably...
Somebody suggested, it wasn't even my idea, somebody said, this he's so big, maybe you should get a film guy to come in and film this. And so Bob Zimmerman, a good friend of mine, brought his camera in, set it up right in front of the jukebox where I used to do all my interviews. And they taped the interview, and I still have it to this day.
Oh, and that's probably one of the earliest interviews he did.
That was July of 1956.
That's unbelievable.
51 years ago. I'm leaving.
I know.
I just realized how old I am.
Yeah, that was done before I was born.
Thankfully. We needed to hear that.
I know. I'll give myself one of these. Yeah. Okay. But now I want to bring Sandy into this because you guys you and Sandy didn't meet each other until like 1971, as I recall. But Sandy, let's get a little bit of background on you and how you came to know Elvis when you were 14 years old. So you're an L.A. girl. You grew up out here. Mm-hmm. I guess what we ought to do is talk about what your dad did for a living so we can establish a foundation here. Go ahead.
Okay, my dad had nightclubs in Los Angeles, and at that time he had one in Panorama City called the Crossbow. And Elvis, when he first got out of the Army, our band leader was a man by the name of Lance Legault, and our bouncer at the door, the guy we gave a job when he first came here from Germany, was Red West. So these are Elvis's buddies. So when he came to do GI Blues, they invited him out to the club, and he came to my dad's club. And we had a balcony area with an upstairs where he could watch the kids on the dance floor and listen to the band, but not be bothered. So he loved that. And he and my dad became fast friends, and my dad took him in the office, and he saw a picture of me. And so he called my house and said, "Hi, my name is Elvis Presley." And I thought, well, that's a funny name. And
wait a minute, you hadn't heard of him?
Well, if I did, I wasn't aware of him.
Stop right there. Wink, by this point, he was a big star, right?
Oh, yeah, he was a huge star. I don't know whether she must have been living under a rock somewhere.
I was at ballet school.
But you knew Ricky Nelson.
I watched, he was on television, so after my dad told me who this guy was, I think Loving You then came out. And I went to see it after I had found out who he is and
And
met
she saw
him.
what she had been missing.
Oh, too bad this isn't television. You should see the look that Sandy is
But
giving
I
me.
didn't know. I didn't really, know. I just thought that was a funny name. So anyway, so he invited me to come up, and he wanted to meet me, and I said no, I can't because it's a school night, and I have to go to school tomorrow. So the same thing happened the next week, and he called again, and he said, well, look, I'm going to be here next Thursday. Ask your mom if she'll bring you to the club. So I asked my mom, and she said okay. So the next Thursday, I went to the club. And there I was in my frilly little dress and a ponytail, and he had a date with a gorgeous actress. Her name was Kathy Kirsch. And he held my hand, kissed me on the cheek, and...
This is in front of the gorgeous actress.
yeah!
But the gorgeous actress probably didn't feel threatened because you were just a kid.
I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, no, she didn't. And then he called and wanted to invite me to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, because that's where he used to live when he first came to California.
At 14 years old.
And my mom said, I don't care if you're King Farouk. My daughter's only 14. She cannot, do that. And he said, well, you can come on the date. So my mother came on the first 3 dates. And, of course, by then he promised her he'd be a gentleman. He'd take good care of me. And we'd just dance and kiss. And so then she let me go after that. And we dated for 6 years.
For 6 years?
Yeah.
By that third date, did you have feelings for him? Were you?
Of course.
You were in love with him at
How
that
could
point?
you not?
Well, I being a guy, I can't answer that.
Well,
but
yeah, he never went out with him.
I know.
How would he know?
he's not my type.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, but you fell in love with him.
Well, sure.
Okay. Now, did you go on the road with him when he did tours and stuff?
No, are you kidding? My mother would not allow such a thing. He used to tell me all about Graceland all the time, and wait till you see it, and you're going to love it, but I didn't get to go to Graceland for years until my mother was on the trip with me and came to Graceland.
Wow. So your
But she
dates
wouldn't let
really
me
just
go.
amounted to holding hands and kissing and going to movies and stuff like that, right?
Exactly,
Right.
yeah.
When do you recall when you were out with him whether he was always mobbed by people or did he have his people? When Pat Harrington was on the show, he did a movie with Elvis and he said
Right.
all of Elvis's people around him were all named Red.
No, just one. There was only one Red West.
But anyway, did his people do a good job of keeping the public away from him when you were out with
we
him?
got to a point where what we would do if we did go out and we went to see the movie Psycho, and it was playing at the Wilshire Theater on Wilshire Boulevard, and we would go and the movie would start and the lights would go out, and that's when Joe would buy the tickets, Joe Esposito, for all of us, and we'd be sitting there in the limos and the Rolls Royce and
Not calling attention to yourselves.
no. And then we would go in after the movie started and take up the last 2 rows in a theater. But that was when they still had usherettes that had flashlights, and they'd come down the aisle and they noticed it was Elvis, and they kept flashing the light on him and bothering us. So then halfway through the movie, Elvis stood up, snapped his fingers, and said, let's go. And the 2 rows got up, and we left the theater. And then I had to have my mother take me back so I could see the rest of the movie. So, it was difficult.
Was he seeing other girls when he was with you? Did you know?
Oh, absolutely.
And it didn't bother you?
Well, no, because he was Elvis, and I was just a young girl. So who was I to say who he could? I mean, he was older than me. I had no right to tell him what he could do.
Well,
I felt fortunate that he would call me and want to see me. So I was happy.
What did your friends think of this?
Well, at first, when I told some girlfriends, either they didn't believe me and thought I was lying, or they were jealous. So then I just stopped telling people. For a few dates, I did take some girlfriends with me, and they got to meet him, and
Oh, you were a hero then.
oh yeah,
Is it like, hey, you want to come over? Elvis is here. We're going to watch Ozzie and Harriet together. You know?
Yeah, so a few of my girlfriends.
How
didn't
did
get
how
to
did
know.
Priscilla figure into all of this? Because this was right around that
Priscilla
time.
met him 2 months before I met him in Germany. So she was in Germany and I was in California, and then it wasn't for a year until she was writing letters that she wanted to come over and she missed him. And
Did
then
you know
he
about
invited
that?
her.
Did he tell
Yeah.
you, I'm getting letters from this girl that I met in Germany?
No, but I was aware because all of the people around him and all the there was a bunch of people that would come to his house every night. Like there's this girl Roberta Kent. I don't know if you know Roberta because she wrote for Hollywood Squares. Funny, she was a funny girl even when she was a young girl, and she was one of the girls. There was a lot of girls who would come up to Elvis's house, and some of them they'd let in, and some of them they wouldn't. But whenever they'd come and they'd say, Roberta's at the door, he'd say, let her in. and Roberta had come in, and she was so funny that Elvis just loved her. So she was there all the time because she was a funny, funny girl. And we're friends to this day. She's a good friend of mine.
So what happened? You were with him for 6 years. So had your love for him, I mean, it's kind of a stupid question, but did your love for him strengthen as the years went on? Did you actually think that this was your guy?
Oh, yeah.
And you never got jealous? Well, okay. But you
but no, I didn't. I wasn't jealous because he was Elvis. And when you grow up a certain way and your conditioning is, okay, I'm this young girl and this is Elvis and he's dating me. And of course he's dating other people too. So that's just the way it was.
That's the way it was. So Priscilla's interest in him never really bothered you all that much because you knew deep down that you were basically his girl. Is that safe to say?
At that point in time, until she came over to
so that's why I got to ask you what happened.
Well, lots of things happened. She came over to the States, and then she moved to Tennessee. And
where was he living at the time? Was he out here in LA?
He was back and forth.
Okay, so he had Graceland, and he had his house in Bel Air here, right? Or Brentwood?
After the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which was the first few years that I knew him, and then he had 3 different houses in Bel Air. He had one on Perugia Way, was the first one, and that used to be Ali Khan's house or something, and that was a really neat house. And then after that, he got this gorgeous house on Bellagio that Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton used to lease, and that house. It wasn't the kind of a house where you would think young people would have parties like we did on the other house. In this house, you go down this winding staircase and there's this big baby grand piano. It was a very elegant house. So he lived there, and then he got another one, one on Roquia or something place. So he had 3 houses in Bel Air through the years.
So what happened? I'm going to go back to this. I want to find out what happened with Priscilla.
He married her.
Well, that I know. But how did this affect you, number one, and how did it kind of? I mean, because both of you stayed close friends with him, even after.
Oh, sure.
Even after you and Wink got together, you were still very close with him.
Absolutely.
But what happened? Priscilla came out here, and he started.
Priscilla came here, and then we did a lot of. I danced in some of his movies, and Viva Las Vegas was the first one, and then he had quite an affair with Anne Margaret. They were an item.
This was while he was seeing you and while he was entertaining Priscilla. But it didn't bother you because he was Elvis.
Right.
That's what you said.
Right.
Okay. I'm just reading. Go ahead.
It is the way it was.
Okay.
I mean, it's just the way.
Okay, but you thought of him as your boyfriend, though, right?
He was.
Okay. I'm having a hard time. I'm divorced, and I'm divorced for the very reason that you're explaining now.
But I wasn't married to him. So if I was married to him, that probably...
Okay.
Would have been a different story.
Okay.
But.
He was a non-exclusive boyfriend.
Okay.
To say the least.
Yes. All right. So
he was so beautiful, he should be shared with all the women,
Well, I should have married you. But I was on the receiving end of my problem.
He really belonged to the world, and he was just not...
And he really was a down-to-earth good old... Yeah, he was a down-to-earth good old country boy, wasn't he?
He was. He would meet you on whatever level you were. Like if you were, as not in your case, but in my case, I was a lady, and he treated me as a lady. If he met somebody who was low class, he could, and had foul language or whatever, he could meet them on their level. He would make people feel comfortable wherever they were. When he was with, like, my mother, he made my mother feel comfortable.
So your mom liked him?
My mother loved him.
That's good. That helps.
Yeah.
That helps.
Oh, it did.
And he was friends with your dad for a long time.
He and my dad, both Capricorns, and got along famously.
Perfect situation.
Yeah.
So what happened with Priscilla?
Okay, so let's see. As the years went on, I did a lot of traveling with Brenda Lee. We traveled all over the world together. We went to Australia and Hawaii and everywhere because she was... Actually, I met her. She went to Hollywood Professional School, and Lamar Fike, who was one of Elvis's guys... When he wasn't working for Elvis, he became a road manager for Brenda Lee. So he and Brenda's manager, Dub, pull up in front of the Hollywood Professional School one day, and Dub says, "Oh, that's Sandy Ferris. She's Brenda's girlfriend." And he said, "Oh, Sandy Ferris, she dates Elvis. She's a really nice girl." So I got like an endorsement. So then her manager liked me. And said, "Okay, well then it's fine that Brenda and I are friends." So then he encouraged her to take me to Australia and around the the world with her because she needed somebody to be with her and somebody who had common sense and like if it was cold, put your sweater on. But if her mother told her to put her sweater on, she might not do that. But if her friend said put your sweater on or put some shoes on or let's not go swimming at 2 a.m, she'd listen to me.
Gotcha.
So that's why I was always trying. In fact, when Elvis did marry Priscilla, I had just seen him not long before that. And we were in San Francisco. She was performing at the Fairmont. She got the morning paper. She came into the room. She said, Sandy, look. And we both sat down on the floor and cried. But what happened was because he was dating other people, I dated other people. And one of the people I dated was Wayne Newton. And before I started dating him, we were just friends. And I was at his recording session of Donkashane. And it was in Harrison Carroll's column. And the next night I had a date with Elvis. And he said, he had the paper there, and he said, who is this Fig Newton person? And I could tell he was not happy with me.
Wow.
He was very upset.
So it's the old double standard. It's all right for him to go...
right, but if you were his girl, you had to be only his girl. So like Priscilla had to be only his. I was supposed to be only his. But he could...
He had 4 only his girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
Or at least 2.
Yeah.
4 that he counted.
So he wasn't happy about that, and Priscilla didn't date other people, so therefore I guess he figured she loved him better and she was cute, and they got married. But we were friends till he died, and before he died, the last time Wink and I were with him, he said that I was the nicest girl from the nicest family that he ever knew.
It was too late because Mr. M got you. So
I know.
So we're going to break in a second. Very quickly, let's talk about how you guys got together and what... When you found out that this tremendous Elvis connection between the two of you, were you surprised?
I don't remember talking about it with Sandy in the beginning. I guess maybe on our first or second date. But actually, we met in Palm Springs, California at the Gene Autry Hotel. It was right in the middle of the time that I was working for the Cowboy at KMPC, doing the midday show here in Los Angeles. Yeah. And I just happened to be there doing an industrial film one weekend, and Sandy was there with a girlfriend, and you can pick up there.
Well, because my dad had nightclubs. He also had one on Sunset called the Red Velvet, where we started. The Righteous Brothers, Glenn Campbell, Sonny and Cher worked there. The Monkees, in fact, Mickey Dolan was our car parker. He parked the cars there, and one night Elvis came in and gave him $100 tip. I thought he was going to just drop dead right on the spot. He was so excited.
Wow.
Yeah, so anyway, so my dad had these nightclubs. Where was my point?
Were you talking about how you met Wink?
Okay. Yeah. So
that's my job.
The music industry.
Thank
you. Yeah. The music industry has this golf tournament, and they invited me to drive their little booze cart where everybody gets equally drunk because they're all betting a lot of money on every hole. So I thought, well, I'll do that, but I didn't want to go by myself, so I took a girlfriend, and we were sitting in Gene Autry's coffee shop, and these 2 guys walked by, and she says, oh, there's Wink Martindale. And I said, nah, that guy's too young and too cute. Wink Martindale's an old married man, because I used to watch his dance party show.
That was me, folks.
Yes.
So,
I don't have that sound effect here.
He had no luck out at the pool, obviously. Came back by the coffee shop. She said, Wink. He said, oh, hi. And so he talked to her, and then I talked to the guy that lived next door to him, this Michael Schmidt. And 20 minutes later, they bought our coffee. Nice, meeting you. Goodbye. And they left. And then 2 weeks later, he called Terry from my phone number. And then she called me. She said, oh, Wink Martindale called me, and he's really a nice guy. And if he calls you, you should have dinner with him. And I said, well, okay. And then it took him 2 weeks before he called me. And then for our first date, it was supposed to be a double date with this other couple, Bill and Karen Smith. And at that time, Bill Smith got fogged in Catalina. He worked at KJL radio station at the time.
Yeah, I remember him. He was newscaster out here, too.
Yeah. And so he couldn't come.
It took me 2 weeks to call you?
I was just going to ask you. You beat me to it.
Because I had several other girls I was dating at that time. See, I had to get back to the Elvis thing.
So anyway.
She's ignoring you, Wink.
Anyway, so we...
in your case, it wasn't true, though. So
that's true. Yeah. Sadly.
Yes.
We went out, and that's 36 years ago.
That's
We've
great.
Been together ever since.
That's terrific. Let me give you 2 seconds of applause there.
When Winky said he was from Tennessee, he scored points with me immediately because I loved the whole state and everybody in it because Elvis raised me, and he was a wonderful part of my growing up and a great part of my life.
Well, and that's great. And the fact that you remained friends with him through all that, I mean, you had to have been upset that he married Priscilla. I mean,
of course.
All right, but you put it aside. And how did Elvis take it when you two people that he had met at different parts of his life came to him and said, "Guess what, Elvis? We're married now."
He was pissed off.
No, he couldn't believe it.
But I explained to him, I said, Elvis, I'd a better man.
Oh!
He really couldn't believe it. Because that day he watched us on a game show called Tattletales, and so when we were backstage, he said, "I can't believe this. You know, I raised Sandy in California, and I know you, and you're me." I said, Elvis, you're responsible, because when he said he was from Tennessee, that was it.
Wow.
And he couldn't get over after watching us on Tattletales that day, which was, as you know, a game show. How much do you know about your spouse? And we won the contest that day because we knew everything about each other. He couldn't get over how much we knew, how well we knew each other.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you probably were only married a very short time at that point, because that was early mid-'70s.
Yeah.
You were together 4 years before you got married?
Yeah, we got married in 75, so that was 2 years. We were married 2 years.
Wow. And then then the neat thing is you guys both remained friends with him. You went to his concerts in Vegas, and what can you tell me real quick, because we got to break, the last time you saw him before he passed away?
You take it, Sandy.
Well, that was it was your birthday. It was December the 4th, and
by the way, happy birthday!
Thank you.
1976. And we saw his show, and then we went backstage, and he didn't want to let us go. He just wanted to talk to me and wink, and he had gotten heavy. And it was like breaking our hearts, because he always used to say to me, because I have an Italian heritage, and he used to say, you have to watch what you eat. You know, you can't eat too much because you could gain weight. And here's my idol that raised me standing in front of me, and he didn't look healthy. And it just broke our hearts.
Can I ask you why you think he let himself go like that? Was it just the pressure of doing those shows and trying to, maintain his image as a hero to so many people? Do we even want to get into this? I don't know. I'm
not sure. I think, first of all, when his mother died, it was a devastating blow, and he lost his anchor. And then when he and Priscilla got a divorce, I think he felt kind of lost and lonely. And I don't think he recovered from that, and I think he just kind of sunk deeper and deeper into a hole.
Do you go ahead, Wink?
No, I was just going to say, when we were in the dressing room that night, Ginger Alden, the girl who was his fiancée at that time, was in the room, and Joe Esposito, all his gang were in there. But the place was packed. His dressing room was always packed with people between shows. But you could hear a pin drop because he only wanted to talk to Sandy and me. And everybody wanted to hear what we were talking about. Wow. He was standing, just like yesterday, he was standing behind the bar. We were standing out in front of the bar talking about having been on Tattletales that day. And I'll never forget, we walked out of there and went back to our hotel, and we closed the door, and I said, Sandy, that's the last time we'll ever see him alive.
We just cried.
And we just broke down and cried.